that makes it better to know that with all the bullshit that I went through for years, and it's not just 1 or 2 years, this is like over a decade, like, and I was able to get through it and still have a good head on my shoulders and keep it moving and not allow him or my past to define who I am.
What's up, peoples? It's your bartenders, Mistah Z.
And your boy, Omega.
We have the honor of inviting Omega's illustrious wife, Mariela Gooch, to help us dive deeper into toxic parent traits, how they affect our lives, good and bad, and the gendered imbalance of expectations and privileges for boys versus girls. We also bring you a special phone-in appearance by my younger sister, Quianna Cater, as she shares her experiences with our dad. As every episode, we want to thank each and every one of you for listening. We truly appreciate the time you take to tune into our conversations.
Special thank you goes out to our Patreon subscribers for their support of the show. Every little bit helps us reach our goals to invite more high-profile guests and create bonus content.
And if you want to join in our conversation outside of this cast, feel free to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at HaveADrinkCast, and make sure to use that hashtag HADcast.
Remember, this is always a conversation. If you don't agree, you want to voice your opinions, or even suggest a topic for an episode, feel free to join our Discord as well. The link will be in the description.
And please, if you like what we're doing here, share us with your friends, your family, your neighbors, hell, even the store clerk that you make faces at underneath your mask while you're in the checkout line. Yeah, your referrals mean a lot to us, as that's how we gain more listeners.
Thank you again.
And get prepared to sit,
think,
and have a drink.
Welcome to Have a Drink Podcast. Enjoy the episode.
We said peace.
What's up, peoples, and welcome back to another episode of the Have a Drink Podcast, where we invite you to sit, think, and have a drink. We're your bartenders, Mistah Z.
And I'm your boy, Omega. And this is my lovely wife and patron, Mariela. She's going to be here today to join us for our episode.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for joining us.
All right. So tonight, our topic today is going to be toxic parental traits or parenting traits. So pretty much we just want to kind of dive into that and talk about what's going on with our parents and how are we raised, as well as what are some of the things that we went through and how did they affect us as individuals, as adults now. And how many of those things have we actually brought into our own families of raising our own children, and how have they affected us in the workplace and all areas of our lives? So, there's no real manual on how to become a parent or how to be a parent, right? So everything's about trial and error and guessing and just doing the best that you can. But there are a lot of things that we look at nowadays where we're like, that wasn't really good that we were going through growing up. And then we turn around and realize we're doing the exact same thing to our own children, So tonight we just kind of want to tackle this and get some different perspectives. So that's why we brought on my wife tonight, and just to kind of get her idea on things. So for those of you that don't know, this is my wife, Mariela. We've been married for 12 years now, and we have a daughter by the name of Janessa. But the thing is I am Janessa's stepfather. Blood would not make me love her or want her anymore. She is my baby through and through. That is my heart. She is my everything. And I've said this many a times on the episode. But I do have to remember, coming into this, is I have been raised one way. My wife was raised another way. And we had to have a lot of communication on how we are going to raise our daughter. And that is very, very important, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that really don't have that conversation, and it tends to become a clash. So tonight we're going to talk about what is toxic parenting traits or parental traits. And then we also are going to tackle a plethora of other questions in regards to that. So Z.
Yes.
So just want to ask you really quickly. So what is your take on toxic parental traits? What do you think about that? Just that term in itself.
I feel like I think it refers to the just kind of like similar to toxic masculinity, the traits that are most undesirable, to a healthy relationship. It doesn't matter what that be, what kind of relationship that is, but especially parental, child relationship. It's important to have sort of that healthy connection, that healthy bond with your child so that they can grow up to be a secure individual. Um, but I see toxic parenting traits as, just another seed to who we are as adults and who we can be as parents.
Okay. And let's now throw it to you, Mariela. So what is your take on it?
Well, I first of all want to say that I have two wonderful parents. Um, so I am who I am because of my parents. But again, parenting is not something that you can read a book and learn how to do. A lot of it is trial and error. And so we do make mistakes and hopefully we learn from them along the way. Um, but there are certain things and expectations that your parents have based on their own experiences and how they were brought up. Um, and so a lot of those we learn by observation and we do and replicate without even being aware of it. So there are a lot of different things. Just a couple of things. Some examples are like being manipulative or judgmental, um, not taking responsibility, kind of blaming, having high expectations. In
Hmm.
Mexican culture, there's a double standard between how you raise boys and their expectation versus how girls are supposed to behave and the roles that they're supposed to play. Also, if you are the eldest versus if you're the baby, you
Mm.
kind of tend to get away with different things. Um, so there's a wide variety of areas how this can affect your life. Parents are supposed to raise their children so that they can become strong, independent, healthy adults. And a lot of times we say things or do things not knowingly that affect our children long term. Maybe a comment. In Mexican culture, a lot of times you grow up with a nickname, and sometimes it's not the most flattering nickname. They're based on how you look or if you're chubby or certain things like that, and they're supposed to be cute, but sometimes they have long-term effects and affect the person's self-esteem and
Mhm.
confidence and just how they feel about themselves. um, and so sometimes we don't think about that, so something innocent can have long-term drastic effects on individuals.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I can definitely resonate with the nicknames that are given to those who are younger as you're growing up, and they're not being very flattering. Because yeah, you call somebody a nickname. I feel like in another language it would come off differently, but even in English we call chunky, we call we have Munchie because we always love to eat, like like
Hmm.
they're usually not flattering nicknames, stuff like that. But
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy that we do have these type of things, right? And I'm glad that you said that sometimes they just don't translate well. Because what they say, what gordo,
Yeah, gordo,
and I mean that's what chubby, fat,
or just basically fat.
right? But then if you say that in English,
Yeah.
hey, what's up, fat? What's up, chubby? That just sounds terrible.
Fat
I
Joe.
mean, Yeah. Well, although I did have an Uncle Fats, so I'm not gonna lie to you. I did have an Uncle Fats, and him and my mom would always talk to each other. They'd be like, "Hey, old Fatso," shouting that from the house. We'd be like, "Mom, he just called you Fatso." Yeah. Hey, old Fatso. I'm like, "Oh my Lanta, you guys are crazy."
But I think that it also depends on the individual because there are people that have, I don't know if you call it thick skin or they have enough self confidence that it doesn't affect them. And so if you're not, there has to be that balance where you can have a nickname for your child, but then they should also know that you love them no matter what.
Absolutely.
So regardless of what they look like, that you love them. And so I think that's the difference between whether just calling someone fat or, that they're okay. It's not a bad thing that they're called gordo.
Right. Because I think about that, translating it to, being a parent and with my own kids, like, I'm, I pride myself on being weird. That's, I derive joy out of it. It's where my light shines. So when I see that in my son, who, one of my sons who's just super, super weird, and I'm like, oh, you definitely got that from me. My nickname for him is Weirdo. But I'm like, "What's up, Weirdo?" Or he's like, "Daddy." I'm like, "Yes, Weirdo." And like, it's not meant to be something that like brings him down. Because I also explained to him, I'm like, "Do you know why Daddy calls you Weirdo?" He goes, "Why?" And then I'm like, "Because Daddy's weird, and being weird is awesome." And I'm like, embracing that it's gonna take you far. And so he does. He's my little weirdo, and I love it.
Now, before you go any further, I do want to point something out that you just said. Is the fact that you took the time to explain to him why.
Mhm.
And then you also drew the parallel as to this is how I am, and I see those bits of me and you. So this is why. Whereas a lot of times that's not even explained, or it's just something in a sense derogatory.
Right.
No,
Right.
call you black, right? I mean, and that's because somebody's super dark. They're like, what's up, black? Why you guys call him black? Because look at him, he's blurple, and they just talk about their
Right.
skin color and they just really write that in, or if they're very fair skinned and a dark skinned family, then they want to talk, what's up, light bright or whatever, right? Like they always got something to say.
What's up, buttercream?
But I think what you described is really important because you explained, but then you also gave the confidence. So like, because kids can be
Right.
really mean. So when
Yes.
you go to elementary school and they call them weirdo or you're weird, like that won't bother him because to him he changed the meaning of that word. So to him it's a positive thing, and so he won't be affected by kids trying to define that. Like he would be okay with that, and I think a lot of times that doesn't happen.
Right. I mean, and I try to make sure that I do it, often so that it's, like, so it reinforces that thought for him, not calling him weirdo, but telling him why. you know, I try to do that often, to be able to help reinforce that same thought, to reinforce that confidence. Because yeah, I did think about that because growing up for me, I was called weird. I was, called all sorts of things. People would avoid me, and I'm like, why? I just want to be your friend. And I see that genuine like desire for connection and openness and like innocence in him, that I'm just like, oh, you might be received the same way that I was. So I want to change a narrative that will probably be there for you, in your school career, that like you can go out there and be like, oh yeah, I'll wear it.
So let's dive in a little bit because I like something that you brought up earlier, was that you talked about the double standards
Mm.
within the household between raising boys and girls. So please talk to us about that a little bit from your point of view.
So just from my own experience and a lot of Latin cultures, there's a double standard with boys versus girls. And so for boys, they're a lot more freedom. They have allowed more like independence. while girls are more, they have more rules and they have to follow certain expectations. Just to give you an example, when I was in school and they had school dances and things like that, I didn't even bother asking if I can go because I already knew the answer.
Mm.
But my older brother, he didn't even ask because he just would go. And so there was one time when I wanted to go, and I said, I worked up the courage to ask, hey, if I can go to the dance. And they were like, oh yeah, if your brother will take you. And I got all excited and I was so happy. I'm going, right? And I asked him, he's like, no, what, are you crazy? I'm not gonna take you. So there was my answer. I don't want to be responsible for you, so I didn't get to go.
Mm.
And so when my daughter was at the age to go to school dances and things, that was actually a conversation that we had because unknowingly I had that same mentality. Like, well, I didn't get to go, so I'm just going to follow that pattern. But on the other side, and then you can chime in, is
Oh, what time is it?
What time is it?
Uh,
What time is it?
hey, hey,
What time is it?
come on. It's
All right,
Black owned
let's go.
business time.
All right.
Perfect. All right. And I'm going to take a moment to introduce a Black owned business. Ha. Fitting title, Black Sands. I have to say, I've been following this company for quite a few years now. Maybe 2.5, maybe 3 years. Um, they're a phenomenal company. They do comic books. They're an up and coming Black owned entertainment company. They produce comic books. They're going to produce animation. They're doing movies. They're going to try to get into video games. They're promoting themselves online to be able to open it so people can purchase shares of their company, invest in them. It's been a really interesting opportunity because they're also starting a. If you've heard of Webtoons, which is an app or site that allows you to read web comics and things, and people create them, post them on there, and it's mainly been typically geared towards romantic stories or something that has like a romantic feel. So what they really wanted to do was to create something similar where, you know, Black and brown creators can come and promote their stuff. So it'll be the Black Sands Publications app where they'll have all their creators that they collab with and that are coming over, and they're going to be hosting on their site. But I just want to share this is their, I just got a whole bundle today and I'm really excited about it. The Black Sands Ultimate Edition hardcover, still in its case, still in its wrapping, not going to open it. I'm a nerdy nerd.
Wait. Before, don't move on. I want to highlight something. If you guys could see the character by Z's right hand, that character, that child has vitiligo.
Yep.
That is so beautiful. It is not very often that you see that they show strength in their imperfections. And the first episode that I watched, they actually talk about that character actually talks about that and how it feels and what they feel inside when people are making fun of them or talking bad about them. And that says a lot, you know? So, I mean, like Black Sands, hey, all the snaps, all the love to you guys. You guys are on to something beautiful, and you guys support us and Have a Dream podcast.
Absolutely. I also want to shout out their other comic series, Cosmic Girls, because I feel like this is a really important series. I also haven't opened this yet, and I can't wait to show it to my boys and my tiny humans, because I want them to be able to have strong female role models in their lives as well, outside of family. Especially strong Black female role models. But yeah, no, I'm really excited, to be able to support, and yeah, I can't wait to see what else they do. Yeah. Thank you.
Back to the double standards. You left off on speaking on how it was a conversation between the two of us, with Janessa wanting to go to the school dance,
mm-hmm.
and you automatically shutting that idea down because you didn't get to go.
Well, I guess not automatically. I just
Oh
didn't.
no, it was automatic.
Yeah, I
I
just
remember.
assumed. I mean, I don't know. Without knowing, right? You just continue the pattern. And so he questioned it. Why can't she go? Well, I always used to go to the dances. So then we had a conversation, and then
Mm.
because of the conversation that we had, she ended up going. And luckily for us, or for me, she had no fun because she thought she was going to a dance where people danced. And she said all the girls stood on one side and all the guys stood on one side and stared at each other and no one danced. So
That is not what she said. That's what she wanted to remember. What
So
she said was, what they were doing wasn't dancing. She said the people in the middle, they were doing all that stuff. They were doing all that dancing that stuff that they were doing. It didn't look like dancing to me.
inappropriate.
It was inappropriate, and I didn't like it. I was like, all right, cool. And yeah, she was young. That's why I use that high pitched voice. So she really did, and it was crazy because I was like, I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
but
but
also just to add to what you were saying is how she said that it was a relief to her. But for me, what we said before we even told her yes was I was like, let her go and let her come out with a thought of what she really thinks about it. Let her formulate her own opinion about the school dance. Because she may not like it at all, or she may love it. I was like, but you have to allow her that space to figure out what she likes and what she doesn't. And to her relief, she didn't like it. So we didn't have to worry about it until junior, senior year.
yeah, and then that was
Because that was middle school.
Ah, okay. Yeah, my middle school experience. Side note, I'm gonna cut this part out.
Leave it in.
My first middle school dance. I showed up because everybody was like, "Oh my god, yeah, this kid danced. Oh my god, there's another kid in the school that dances. You guys should battle." Okay, cool, yeah, sure. I'm someone who just was, mimicking Michael Jackson. I wasn't even like dancing like Michael Jackson. It was just mimicking him at that point. And it wasn't even very well. And this kid comes over and he's popping and he's ticking and like gliding and waving and does a backflip, does the splits. This motherfucker pantses me. And then like not even in that order. Like he pantsed me before he did the backflip. Yeah. Yeah, that was my first dance battle ever. Oh, like yeah. Like that was my experience. And I mean, obviously it didn't deter me from dancing ever again. But still, I'm like, oh, yeah, that wasn't my middle school experience. I mean, yeah, the kids stood on one side, kids stood on the other. But then when something happened, people were like, oh my God. And then as we kept dancing, we started the party. Yeah.
I mean, that was mine. I mean, nobody pans me at all. Not in the slightest, because they would have caught these hands. Try Jesus, not me. Right? But that was so big. But nah.
Sorry.
Middle school dances was great. It was great. All of it. Everything. All my school dances, all my dance experiences was great. So that's why I was very passionate about my daughter having that opportunity. Because I'm treating her just like if I had a son. Go have fun. Go enjoy it. If you feel like it's good, cool. Not, then don't go. But at least you tried it.
Right. I feel that same way. It's really important. I plan on, when having a daughter, is raising her like I'm having a boy. Obviously, with certain faculties in mind of like, all right, I might have to train you a little bit more in fighting, but like, or I might have to have Uncle Omega train you a little bit more in fighting. But, yeah, definitely understanding that. Because, yeah, growing up, in like my household, the things that girls versus boys, what they could do, it was predominantly boys in, I guess, my generation of kids, because like my niece and my nephews, like it was like the boys, and I grew up with them more than I grew up with my siblings, where the dominance was female for my older siblings. So I had a strong female presence in my life. So it felt like it was more like a tribe mentality raising me but yeah, there was a lot of stuff in there that is also the product of toxic parenting. Creating this idea that girls, the females in the family should be, and I use quotes, the caregivers and taking on parental roles, and things like that. Because yeah, the double standard of boys versus girls when growing up, it is heavy, it is hard. Because what you've shared, it gives more insight too to those girls in my childhood, in my high school, teenage years, where I would ask them to, hey, do you want to hang out? Go to the movies. Do you want to hang out? Go to this dance that's happening, and they're like, no, I can't. I'm like, why? But it wasn't the same experience for me, so I didn't understand.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because one time I did question, because we were all the same age, and I was like, so if all my friends and all the parents tell their daughters they can't go out, then who are all these boys going out with? Like I question, like I question,
Right.
it just didn't add up. So it was it was a little bit weird. But like you said about the caregiver role, being the eldest daughter, you kind of take on those responsibilities of watching your younger siblings, making sure that they eat dinner, making sure that they are get ready for bed, and things like that. And it makes you grow up a lot quicker, being more responsible. You don't understand it at the time because you're like, I want to play and I want to have fun. But as an adult, then you're more responsible and you have that experience.
But also with that have been said too, I mean, think about a lot of the women or the young people, the young individuals that are young adults, 20s, 25, and they're off the hook because they were sheltered for so long and they were enclosed, so that's that healthy balance, you know what I mean? And that's just how I feel. I mean, they very well could have been okay to go out all the time and do whatever they wanted to, and that's just their personality. Mm-hmm. But you also have to remember that there are those people that have that, well, I didn't get to do anything when I was living at home, so I'm going to try and do it all right now.
Yeah.
Or in the first couple of years, or right when I'm 21, or right while I'm at college, I got to do it all. And they just overdo it, and they don't understand balance. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel is important, is balance.
Yes, absolutely.
But then when you are dealing with those parents, those toxic parents that don't know what balance is, they are either way too lax, or they are way too strict, or they just don't have, they have a skewed view of reality when it comes to parenting.
Right.
Because they always go back to the age-old thing of, well, this is how I was raised.
Right. Well, that sparks the question then for me, because you Mariela have shared a little bit about some of the toxic parenting traits that you were raised in. But, like, to expand on that further, like what were what were more of the toxic parenting traits that you've experienced? Yeah,
let's do one each.
So I guess now, as an adult and as a parent, you kind of look back and it changes, right? Because you're thinking of raising your own children.
Right.
So like being held responsible or having high expectations of me, maybe at a young age, and feeling that sense of maybe I'm not good enough, because they always have high expectations and expect you should know better, right? So then that gives you that feeling of I'm not good enough. And now it's funny because we can now joke with my dad about it, because he would always say, he had this one saying, like, you guys aren't, like, it doesn't, we'll translate it in English, but like, you guys aren't good for nothing. No matter what, if he asked you to go get me whatever, or whatever the request was, the answer or default was always like, you're never good enough. And now we can joke about it, and he thinks it's funny, like he never said it, but he did say it. And luckily we were, I don't know, strong enough to not take it to heart, and we got past that. But it was always this feeling like inadequate, or you're not good enough, and you're always trying to prove yourself. So in my case, that was kind of predominantly what I experienced.
That convenient amnesia seems all too prevalent amongst our parents' generation when it comes to things later in life.
Ain't that the truth? But I'm gonna let you go next.
Ooh, what do I choose from? I grew up so I grew up with just my mom in my life. I didn't have my dad in my life. In growing up, and that was due to their relationship and their connection and the toxicity that they had with each other. You know how they say, if you leave the person, if you stay in a relationship just for the child, that toxicity will be shown to the child. But not in this case. It didn't really matter. My mom still was going to show it whether or not, he was in our lives, whether he was in the house or not. One of the things she did, I guess one of the environments she raised me in, a better way of putting that is, she dumped all of her pain onto me to carry for her. It was talking to me about my dad and what he did to her, did to my sisters, did to my family, did whatever X, Y, and Z was, that he had wronged. And and whenever my dad was around, she would have like these gigantic mental breakdowns. I always know when she would talk to him, because there would be shattered plates in the kitchen. I'd hear them shattering, because I'm like, oh, my mom must have talked to my dad, like, and then the next few hours was just her cleaning all that up after her being so upset. So a lot of it was putting me in that therapist role. I mean, it kind of translates now to how I am as an adult, though. Like, I'm very much that person that's like, trust me, I've heard it all. Like, you won't surprise me, and I won't judge you. I'll listen. I'll accept you however you are, and just give you that space as a human being, because that's what we all deserve. So there's this weird duality to it, but at the same time, it was a lot to put on me as a kid, to where I couldn't have normal conversations with people. That's what it produced growing up. Not the inability for me to not have normal conversations with people, because I wanted to talk about stuff like what like deeper conversations, like, because there was more important things in the world than, to me, whatever was happening on the sports team game that was happening that day. But yeah.
So that's your excuse for not knowing sports?
No, I have a lot of reasoning. What about you, Omega?
What's that? Yeah, there was actually a quote that we wanted to say.
Oh yeah.
Number 2, which was, no child should ever have to bear the burden of parenting their own parents. To toxic parents, you existed to serve them all the time. Kim Said. And that's very, very important, because, I mean, like you, I too felt I dealt with some things, right? Like, it's weird saying this out loud. From my point of view, I felt like I dealt with the hit first, ask questions later. Like, and some people won't believe that, or probably, and I know my mom will probably deny it, because, she's got that selective memory. I didn't hit you guys. Nah, man, we got it, right? But a lot of times I love my mom. She did the best she could to raise myself and my eldest brother. My father was around. And this is why I wanted to go after you. So you have the two ends of the spectrum. You have somebody like my wife who had both parents in the home. We have you who did not have their father in their life really at all. And then you have somebody like me who was primarily raised by my mother. My father was around, but not at the capacity that was what I felt I needed and what I want in the way that I wanted it. So a lot of the responsibility came down to my mother. My mother was the one that was the disciplinary action around for me. And the thing is, this is like, putting my mom's business out there like that. When she gave birth to me, it put her into menopause early. So controlling her emotions, her feelings, and everything was very hard. Mm-hmm. But that was crazy to me because she'll be happy one moment, sad the next moment, angry another moment, happy again. And those fluctuations in hormones is something that a child doesn't understand and doesn't get. So I could be doing something fine and I could say something that she didn't like and I'd get popped for it. And I won't know why. And then she'll be angry with me. And then the next thing I know, then she's like, I love you, or hugging me. And I'm like, well, what the heck is going on here? Like, I don't get it. So it's very confusing. Or something that probably was warranted, maybe a stern talking to, would be an overkill.
Met with overreaction.
And my brother was very, very scarred from it himself, from the way he was raised. But I mean, to where he is still processing that now, to where he has his own qualms that he still has to get through.
Right.
Because of it.
Right.
And there were times when he would be angry or mad or take out stuff on me because of how mom would let me do things that he felt like he was unable to do when he was younger. So it's like I'm still dealing with the residuals from his scarring from our mother, and I said all that to also say this. It was weird to see how my brother had his own kids. He disciplined his children the way he was disciplined, not to the full extent, but, spanked them. And then we both looked at our mother crazy because she came out like Superwoman, was like, you don't hit these kids. You got to love them. You got to sit them down. You got to explain to them. You got to talk to them. And we're like, what? We both, exactly. We both looked around like, where were you? Who was that?
Did I miss something? Like,
nothing to us. Like your hands in the pocket.
Yeah.
So
it's all too common. Thank you for sharing that, both of you. I appreciate that.
So this one says that a child's shoulders were not built to bear the weight of their parents' choices.
And that was by Toby Mac. And that one really spoke volumes. Like she brought this up while we were having dinner. And that hit me. That was like a gut punch, because I remember listening to, well, we ain't got money. We don't have this. We don't have that.
Right.
But yet I know my mom did whatever she possibly could to get it, but right. I will still have to hear about it. Whereas with my daughter, I tried to make a point not to say those things to her. I did not want her to think about those or to know about those because it's not up to her to worry about.
Right.
Because I remember how it made me feel growing up. Like I would want to do something or I'd want to get something, but I can't because my mom didn't have the money. Or to be out with friends and be like, oh, well, this is only $10 that I have. Like, well, let me figure out something let me see if I can finesse this so I don't have to really spend that much money, because of that.
Right.
One of the things that you said about comparisons, and so one of the toxic traits is unhealthy comparisons. So like sometimes parents say, why can't you be more like your sister? Or why can't you be more like your cousin? Or, and that sometimes they do unknowingly or maybe purposefully. I don't know. And it makes the child feel like they're not good enough, and then it also causes animosity and like jealousy between like your brother or whoever they're comparing you to.
Absolutely.
I do want to say this though, and it's very interesting that you talk about how Mariela brought up the comparisons and then the animosity. I specifically remember a fight that I had with my eldest brother. He's the only person that I fought with. Mind you, I have 9 siblings. I've only fought with one sibling, the oldest one. He was 15 years older than me. So remember that. When I'm 14, he's 29.
Mm.
And I said that very specifically because that brings me back to one particular fight that we had. And I'm sure and me and my brother, we're close. We're very close. You know, all's forgiven. You know, but I'll never forget this one time when we had into a fight. We were arguing about something. I don't even remember what. And my brother punched me square in my chest so hard I was lifted off my feet and I flew into my closet. Now remember, this is a 29-year-old man hitting a 14-year-old boy. Socked me right off my feet into the closet. Boom. And when I came out of the closet, I was angry. And I was wearing a watch that my godmother had gave me. And he was in the kitchen. I was so pissed, so mad. I was yelling at him. And I don't know how my watch came from off my wrist into the palm of my hand. And I threw that watch across the house, across the room, and it shattered into a million pieces when it hit the wall. And it put a dent into the wall. And my brother looked at the wall and forgot everything we fought about and was like, "Why did you do that? Look at what you did to the wall. Like, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy?" And went off on me. And I was like, "Look, man, I'm tired of you laying hands on me." Just really let him know. And then it got to the point to where we went from that argument to a moment where he explained to me why he was so angry. And I'm like, "Well, why are you taking out your anger on me?" And that's when he started to break down with the whole thing with what happened with our mom and him, with the way he was raised, with the opportunities that he felt like he didn't get or was held back from. It was a eye-opening conversation, you know, which was very, very hard to have, but was necessary. You know,
Right.
and that's why I was just saying it was interesting that my wife brought up this comparison thing, because he was constantly looking at things that I was able to do, the things that I was accomplishing, and he got very upset and angry to where it just finally it festered for so long. It just exploded between the two of us.
Right. Well, damn. Thank you for sharing, real quick, I want to give a quick little introduction. Joining us at the bar, actually via phone call, is my little sister, Quianna. Thank you for joining us on our episode today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. We're well. Now, wait, is this the little sister that I know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Hey.
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 She works with us in the same vicinity of sports entertainment, just doing something a little bit different. We try to keep what we do a little bit ambiguous, just so that general, so that we don't, break any rules.
Yeah.
But today, I mentioned this to you before, which is why I was having you call in. But it was toxic parent traits or parental traits, as well as the double standard of boys versus girls while growing up. So I shared a story briefly. We all shared a story about what an experience that we've had growing up with toxic parenting traits. And I shared it from the side of, you know, me having just, you know, my mom in my life with no dad. Omega talked about, you know, even having his dad in his life. And Mariela also shared, you know, the perspective of having two parents, but you essentially had two households.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get a little bit more insight on that. Like, what was I mean, there's a lot to choose from, but what was something that you remember that was especially toxic growing up for you, as well as something that you felt was an imbalance between um, your other older brother and you, your expectations and allowances, so to speak, not monetary, but
Okay. Well, growing up, honestly, it was hard because my parents got a divorce when I believe I was in sixth grade, and then since the divorce, it just went downhill. Our father was very what can I say? How can I say it? Manipulative and very controlling. And you know, when I would, on the weekends, once they got all the orders and stuff from the judge, I would always have to go over there on the weekends. And, you know, I would go over there and it's just he's either drinking and I'm taking care of him, or, you know, bad talking and bad mouthing my mom, and then, you know, having to go back to my mom, and, you know, just being bounced around a lot was a lot for a kid my age. And between both households and dealing with, you know, he said she said type thing in the middle is hard on a child. And you know, it's just, yeah. One incident I can remember very vaguely, or like very, yeah, vividly, there you go, that's the word. Was our father was in the hospital, and he was dating this one woman, and she decided to talk shit to my mom while my dad was in the ICU, talking about how my mom's a whore, how she's a slut, how all this and that, and yeah. Um, and as a 17-year-old, I went up to her and I asked her politely not to talk to my mom, because she doesn't need to talk to my mom. Like, has nothing to do with her, you know? Like, my mom was just there. She was being supportive for her child.
right.
And, you know, I was going to pull her aside and talk to her, and dad had a tube down his throat so he couldn't talk, and he told us to stay in front and so he can hear. And he was just like, I told her, you don't need to talk to my mom. Like, she's not here for you. She's not here for him. She's here for me. And she just, you know, started threatening and going after me as a 17-year-old and saying, well, you don't know me, I can get gangster. And I had to tell her, like, I don't want to know you. I don't need to know you. And, like, this is my dad. I'm his daughter. I'm his blood. And the next day, he got his tube taken out. And, you know, I'd been there for a couple of days visiting in and out. And so it was the first time I heard him talk. And the first thing he said out of his mouth was, you need to apologize to her for telling her not to speak to my mom.
Mm.
So, you know, dad, he was there, but he wasn't. And it was very hard to have just one parent, which was my mom. She did everything. She was, you know, she was my mom and my dad put into one. She had to take care of both me and my older brother, and, well, not you, the other older brother. And, you know, it was a lot on her. And we weren't the best of kids. I suffered from my anxiety and stuff, and she dealt with a lot. But I give her a lot of praise and a lot of props for dealing with what she had to deal with us.
Of course.
And then the difference between me and my older brother, there was a lot of difference. He was held at a higher standard. He always had to get A's and B's. If he got anything lower than a C, he would get in trouble. Well, both of us would, but he would get it most. He got away with a lot of stuff, and I was told no. So if I was like, "Oh, well, you let him do that when he was my age," well, they say it's because I'm a girl and it's different.
Exactly.
Which I never understood because I thought we were all equal.
Isn't that that's the story that we try to tell?
Exactly. But yeah, growing up with a toxic parent, especially like somebody that you were supposed, that supposed to take care of you and protect you from heartache and all that stuff. And it's sad to say that that person that was supposed to protect me was the one that hurt me the most.
Of course.
And I do have a lot of stuff I have to work on with my life, and I'm working through it day by day. But
how have those
I think
toxic traits or I guess experiences affected you today?
I have a lot of issues with. I keep, a lot of his issues were like broken promises and false information and things like that. And so over the years, like, I do have my issues of not following through with things that I say because, I was raised to do that because that's what he would do with us. Things like false information, like he couldn't like tell me his actual age. He always gave me like a different birthday and stuff because he just couldn't really give me his actual birthday because he had so many lies and stuff like that. And over the years I've learned to recognize these toxic traits when I do have them in my life, or when I do allow him to come in and I want to start talking to him, but then he does something like lie and make false statements and stuff like that. And then, he also he sees me as a child other than an adult.
Yes.
And, I've been an adult and been on my own since I was 18, and I've been doing really great. And, he brings a lot of heartache and a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, and it's stuff I'm working through. And so when I recognize his traits, I learned to put my wall up. It sucks, but that's you don't want to put your wall up when it comes to your dad, but
right. But
you do,
putting up
and it sucks.
boundaries putting up boundaries with people, even if they're your parent, is really important.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Mariela, I believe,
Yeah.
has a question.
Yeah, well, actually,
Oh,
two things that stood out from your story.
yeah.
One, you mentioned the empty promises, and
Uh-huh.
what that does, it breaks the trust, and then also it makes you feel betrayed, and then also, as you might not notice, but I don't know if it's maybe hard for you to trust people because that was your experience. But it sounds like you recognize those and you're aware of um, trying to deal with those things. The other
Yeah.
thing that you mentioned was about the story at the hospital. And one of the
Mhm.
things that's toxic is that they demand respect just because of their age. And it makes
Mhm.
children like feel that they can act whatever way they want just because they're older. And so when
Yeah.
you're growing up, that's hard because it's your parent and you are taught to be respectful, but then it gets to the point where you have to be respected as an adult. And so finding those boundaries and setting those limits, because you don't want to completely cut them off because they are your parent, but then you also don't want to keep putting yourself through pain and disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the boat I'm in right now. It's just another issue that we had, and I'm just in this boat where I don't really want to deal with it anymore. And I'm still working through it and stuff, and with my trust issues, you're right. It's a little bit on guard than most, but I'm working through it each day and, just taking everything day by day.
So may I also ask you a question? And I hate to dig deep
Mhm.
into that, back into that time at the hospital, but something that was
No
said that
worries.
really got me, that really stuck out to me was the first words that you heard were, "You need to apologize."
Yeah.
Now, my question is in that moment, what went through your mind and your heart at that moment?
What the fuck did he just say?
That sounds about right.
Was literally yeah, like that was literally the feeling. And like my grandmother, she was there with me, and she looked at him too and was like, wait, huh? Everybody kind of looked at him like, wait, what? um and I filled with rage. I got really upset. I felt hurt. And the thing that even pissed me off more was that she was standing over there like, no, honey, it's okay. She doesn't have to do it. You don't have to. And then yeah.
Do you feel like she was playing the part when she said that, when she was saying that? Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, for
So
sure. She was.
manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So,
a rough thing, man.
oh, yeah. Like I said, it's the one person that's supposed to be, we are raised or taught that, your father is supposed to be your protector. He's supposed to show you how, somebody is supposed to treat you, like how a man is supposed to treat a woman. And, he was the person that hurt me the most and showed me what not to go through in life and not to deal with.
Teaching you what not to put up with.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you for opening up, because I felt like it was also important to hear the perspective from somebody who went through this but is not currently a parent yet.
Yeah.
Because we're all of us that are on the line right now, we all have kids.
Yeah.
We're being confronted with our parenting traits and our past parenting experiences, because we have kids of our own, and we're we're either passing on those traits or correcting them as they come up.
Yeah.
And so I felt it was important to also see what it's like before you have kids, if you're able to recognize it, how you're able to manage that, how you're able to move forward. And it sounds like you're doing a good job of recognizing it. Sometimes it takes maybe your older brother
Yeah.
kind of helping you suss through that, but like it shows that you're on the right path. You're showing that you can make those boundaries, even if it is your parent, that you show that
Yeah.
toxic is toxic and you're not going to put up with it.
And the thing is too is like, like even with all the stuff that I went through with him and all the things emotionally that like really destroyed me and stuff, like I still, I feel like I still turned out pretty well. You know, I worked with a really great company. You know, I get told every day that I have a really good head on my shoulders, and that makes it better to know that with all the bullshit that I went through for years, and it's not just 1 or 2 years, this is like over a decade, like, and I was able to get through it and still have a good head on my shoulders and keep it moving and not allow him or my past to define who I am.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and
And
that's
especially now that I got you.
Oh.
that was beautiful. That was a moment.
Well, yeah. Well, little. I don't know what to call it, but me and
Disclosure.
Z were actually, yeah, a little disclosure. Me and Z were actually apart for over 15 years, and about 5 or 6 years ago, we finally like reunited because of our toxic parents.
Yes.
Wow, that's deep.
Hmm.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that's the positive, I guess, that came out of it. So that's good.
Yeah. Absolutely. Before we let you go, I kind of wanted
Mm-hmm.
to say something that it brought me to. I was talking with an individual, and we talk about this journey that people take in life, where like there's this belief of we start this journey from this infinite collective of souls. We fall into this body, or we fall into this existence, only to just die again and return. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you experience life in its entirety, through pain, through struggle, through suffering, through evil, and on the other side of that, there's this purity. There's this perfection, that can't be achieved without suffering everything. Um, and so this idea that with all of these pains that we've individually gone through, whether that was, you know, this this very messed up double standard, or the, you know, the authoritarian rule of one, a manipulation of another, or what have you, you know, to come out on the other side stronger for it. um it's important to remember that too, you know, that through pain can come beauty, through pain can come success, through death comes life, you know, balance, as you said before, Omega. um so yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time, sis. Cool. Well, thank you for joining us on the Have a Drink podcast. I hope to
Yes,
have
thank
you
you.
on more officially, in that kind of setting. But yeah, I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it and love you guys and wish you guys nothing but the best.
Yeah, love you too.
Likewise, we love you
Thank
too,
you.
and be safe out there. All right.
You guys too.
All right. Bye
All right.
bye.
All
Love you.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Cool.
Man, that
Thank you.
was whew, that was heavy.
Yeah.
That was heavy. I'm glad that you had her come on for for that very point of view. But also, it also puts in a perspective of, not perspective, but it solidifies what Mariela was talking about earlier about, you know, the double standard, but also something that we didn't even get to talk about, but was kind of lightly mentioned, was the lack of positive affirmations towards the daughters. You know, like she didn't get that. She didn't start getting that until she was older.
Right.
And in some of Mariela's research, there was another quote in there that said, "You can't change the toxic behavior of your toxic parents, which is their responsibility to do so. All you can do in this situation is to pray for them so that they have a change of heart and realize that what they are doing, is wrong and harmful to you in the long term." You know, and that's all that we can do, and that's really factual. But
Right.
then also another one, it says sometimes toxic parents are also better loved from a distance to avoid further psychological and emotional damage from their toxic and abusive behavior.
In turn, that just takes and makes it harder for the child, because then they feel like there's this lack of affection that's being given to them that they're just craving.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, interestingly enough, another person I know has that exact experience. Was, she grew up with their toxic parent in the household. Her dad was just like very mean, very like extreme in reactions. And after the birth of her brother, he had one reaction and then left, and he distanced himself completely from the family, from everybody, because he's like, I don't want to further put this toxicity onto them. So like there was this moment of clarity, but then she's asking there, like, wait, why why didn't you do this before? But at the same time, like, what? Doesn't that mean you could change it?
See, and then, but it also brings me back to a moment of a conversation I had with my daughter, you know, in regards to her biological, speaking on him, making a comment about how, because he works really, really hard. I can't take nothing from him. He works really, really hard. He worked so hard in his industry where he was expecting more children.
Mm.
And he tells our daughter, I'm not going to work holidays anymore. I'm going to spend more time with my kids and my family.
Mm.
And she was like floored by that, because what she said to us in response was, well, what about me? I'm your kid too. Like, why are you waiting until now to do that? Well, what about me? Why couldn't you do that with me? And that's always been the thing, is why can't you do that for me?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that you want to make these changes for them? You can't do this for me. And that broke my heart when I heard her tell me this. Yeah. So much so to where I felt like I was trying to pick up the pieces and make up his shortcomings.
Mm.
I would work so hard and almost to a fault, to where I felt like I was overdoing it, because I could see his toxicity dripping on my daughter, and I didn't like it. It was spilling over onto her, and I didn't like it. So I would almost overdo things, even so much now. It's like, I was even sitting there thinking, I was like, do I love on my daughter too much? Do I hug her too much? Do I tell her I love her too much? Do I kiss her too much when I see her? Do I, just show her so much affection? And I wonder that. But then I also think about it, I'm like, I don't even know how many years she went without it.
Mm-hmm.
From a father.
From a father figure, not from her and her mom are thick as thieves. They're like twins. It's ridiculous. But I mean, from a father, from a male figure.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, they're always trying to put that out there about the black male, about the black fathers that were absentee, we're not good dads, we're not there for our children. In reality, it's very different. Very, very different. There are those that do live up to that stereotype, but it's very different. All the black fathers that I know have been there for their children, and they love their children. And then there are those few that fell through the cracks, and I looked at them like, what the hell is wrong with you? Do you not see what gift you have right here?
Absolutely.
In general,
like my little nephew, like, I mean, he's not even like, he's a really good friend of mine, her son. Like, I was looking at her like, maybe we should hook up, because I love your kid. Like, your kid's amazing. Why is his dad not here? Like, can I be his dad? Like, damn, like, really? Like, he's amazing. Like, what is he missing out on? Like, I could not believe that this guy could not be there. And I'm like, you have no idea what kind of a gift you got, and you're losing it. And it's like,
absolutely.
It's so scary and so sad that we have adults out there that are willing to let their toxicity spill over onto their kids and cause that ripple effect.
I mean, it actually brings me to a question I wanted to ask you guys. But first, it reminds me of, I think it was a post from Charlemagne the God. And it was talking about showing him with his kid all the time. And was like, y'all see me out here, with my kids, showing love, showing affection, like having a great time. We're doing all these cool and wonderful things. And like, you see me as a black male role model and you want to emulate that. You're like, I want to have kids too. But what you don't understand, he says, is that like you don't see the hard parts that it took to get to that point, because it once becoming one, he said, once he became a parent, it was apparent that he had a lot of things that he needed to work through. You know, there was a lot of like therapy he had to undergo in order to dismantle some of those things for him, you know, in order for him to even be a good dad, partner, etc., you know, what have you. And I resonate with that so much because, you know, when finding out that I was going to have a son, and then you know, and then being in my other son's life, you know, like I adopted this idea of like, okay, I know that all these things are going to come up because I remember what happened in my childhood, and I don't want to do those things. I want to do something different. There's things that there are great things that I want to take from it, but I'm like, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. But then I'm like, that's not useful. Let's just put that over there, you know? and to be able to kind of go forward from there and like really, really be the parent that I wish I was. At the same time, though, there are moments where I catch myself in those places of like, oh, I'm repeating a toxic experience that I had as a kid with my boys. How do I change this? And so I would like to ask the question. I would like to pose it to you guys first. How do you recognize that? How do you recognize these traits within yourself? And how do you overcome them and the ones that you experienced?
So I'll go first, I guess.
Of course.
So as a parent, you want to, you know, how you raise your child, it's going to determine like their personality, their level of self-esteem. It's also going to influence their beliefs. And so they look to you for love and support and acceptance. But sometimes we fall short, right? You're angry or upset, you had a bad day, and they're mom, 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 mom. And so you snap, you know, I already told you 10 times. Like, so those kind of moments happen, but being able to build that relationship with them where they trust you and you can explain, you know, I'm sorry I was upset earlier, or, you know, this is what happened. And it's okay to have those emotions. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. You know, and we all fall short. We have our moments, but being able to apologize and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I did this, or I'm sorry that this happened. I think that's very critical. And then also being aware, because like you said, sometimes you're grown with these patterns and you are repeating the cycle of it's like being controlling, or language, or not being supportive, or not apologizing, or certain things that's what you grew up with, that sometimes you find yourself doing unknowingly, but being able to recognize it and then talk about it later. I think that's important.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna put something out there.
Go ahead.
So earlier in our marriage, we went through a rough patch, and due to something that my infidelity caused us to have a rough patch in our relationship. And in turn, that put us into counseling. That was the best thing for us, was us to go to counseling. Because even that early in our relationship, it helped me to become a better person, man, father, husband, leader. Because it gave me the tools on how to clearly communicate and understand things from another perspective. So therefore, it helped me to look deeper into situations and myself, to notice the things that were wrong with me, to notice the things that were happening in my childhood and my past, that may be sneaking up or spilling over into my future.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important. So that's how I was able to overcome a lot of those things. And I'm also going to say, I pride myself, and you said that we've talked about this before, I pride myself on being the change that I wish to see. I work very hard on being different from what I've seen and what I've felt before. I didn't like the things that happened. I didn't like the way I was growing up in the respect of my household, or watching a marriage, or watching how we were being raised. There were a lot of aspects of it that I didn't agree with, I didn't like. I made that change. No way in a shape or form am I saying I'm the perfect father. I hope I'm a good dad. I hope I hope my daughter is pleased with the way that she was raised under our household with me. And I hope that she can listen to this conversation and say within the immediate household that she grew up in, she doesn't have any of this.
Right.
You know, that's the goal. Because I know there's a lot of toxic moments that she felt in the other household that she was in. Recognizing those things happening to her in that household, sitting back and looking back at the household that I was raised in, not saying it was a terrible one or a toxic one, it was just I was just a product of the times and of what was going on.
Mm.
And I just know that there were things that I didn't like. And like you said, I chose what I liked, and I just got rid of what I didn't. And that's how I tried to live with it. For instance, babe, how many times have I raised my voice at our daughter?
Maybe once.
Mm.
One time. I've been in my daughter's life.
And she was already an adult.
Way over half her life. Yeah. I hadn't been yelled at my daughter until she was an adult.
Yeah, technically she was.
Yeah, she was an adult. She was 20 years old by the time for the first time I ever yelled at her. I made a point not to do that because why? I remember growing up and hearing my mom yelling at me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then also knowing that it can be done where you don't have to physically punish a child to get your point across.
Mm-hmm.
Why? My dad, I pride myself out of all my siblings, I'm the only one that my dad never hit.
Mm.
I am the only one. They all got good beating stories. Like when we sit around together, we all got our slavery talk. We all have our moments when we got hit by massa, you know. Everybody got that good beating, right? But in regards to my father, I don't have that. I don't have that conversation. I don't have that area. That wasn't me. My dad yelled at me. Guess how many times? One time. My father yelled at me one time. Yes, I almost defecated on myself. But he yelled at me one time. You know, the other time my mom, she snitched on me and was like, I'm going to tell your dad. I was like deathly afraid. I thought, oh man, this is the day.
That's it. I got to pack my stuff.
Was really good. He was like, I'll put it like this. My dad had the build of an athlete. Well, my dad was an athlete. He was an athlete, right? So my dad was like big and strong. He played baseball. He could have gone pro. And I'm saying that because I want you to have the idea of what a pro in shape person looks like. So imagine if he is great at baseball, you know he's got a great swing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I was deathly afraid when my mom told me she was going to tell my dad. My dad called me into his bathroom because he was in the middle of shaving his face. I could see it still to this day. Like literally as I'm talking to you, I can see the memory in my mind. Because my mom caught a Playboy magazine on the top of my bed open. And I was doing something. I was watching TV, relax. I wasn't doing nothing else. No Jergens was involved in this moment. But she saw that. She took it, threw it away, and was like, I'm going to tell your father. I'm like, oh, Lord, he's going to kill me. Oh, man, my dad's going to beat me. Oh, man.
I'm going to give away my toys.
Right? Well, he called me and he said, Anthony, come in here. I went into the bathroom while he was shaving. I was standing behind him. And he asked me. He just talked to me about it. He just talked to me about it. He was like, so your mom told me. I said, told you what? Trying to play stupid. She's like, She told me about the magazine she found in your room. I was like, okay. Now I'm sitting there thinking he gonna turn around and slice my throat with that razor he had in his hand. I'm just scared. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Sweeney Todd moment.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. I was thinking about the color purple, and she was shaking and shaving. I was like, oh Lord, don't teach me how to shave today. I was nervous. I was scared. But instead, he was like, look, man, next time, just don't take it home. You're gonna look at it, you're gonna find it, but just don't take it home. I had the biggest sigh of relief. It was like Whitney Houston. No, it was like Angela Bassett from Wait Until Exhale.
Oh.
Right? No, that was Whitney Houston who did it. Whitney Houston's Wait Until Exhale moment. And I was just like, oh Lord, I survived. But just think about that. It's not the beatings that I'm gonna remember. It was the message that he gave me. It was the grace that he allowed me. And he just talked to me from one man to another. Just don't do that again. Make better choices. You're better than that. You understand the consequences. Just don't do it again. That lasted a lot longer than if he just would have beat the living snot out of me.
Really?
Because
that'll
I can't tell you
imprint.
why my mom was mad at me the many a times that she swatted me and beat me and hit me and slapped me and punched me. The one time she jumped me was because my teacher called.
Oof.
But outside of that, I don't remember most of the other time that she hit me.
She probably didn't tell you why.
She didn't. She just started swinging, man. I was getting jumped into the gang that day. It was scary.
Into the motherhood.
Into the motherhood.
She unleashed the mother load on me, man. It was rough. But but I just don't remember the message that was being told to me.
Right.
And that's a problem.
But that's why it's important when they say in a lot of teachings that the disciplining your child with corporal punishment, it doesn't teach them the lesson. It just teaches them to use that later when they don't like what someone is doing. So yeah, I can definitely see that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. You were good. You were golden.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it I think about it too, because like the things that I recognize within myself, they appeared when I was in a toxic relationship. And I mean toxic on both ends, where we both had deep-seated issues that were just coming out on each other. And we were each other's lesson, which was horrible, but also, we came out, or at least I know I came out better as a person for it. But like I started seeing those things because at the same time in that relationship, I was also like, oh, I'm going to have a kid. Oh, great. Like I know that there's so much that like I felt like I went into shock. That's what happened. So I recognized all these toxic traits in my relationship with that person. And then I'm going to have a kid and I go into shock. And so I go into this space of dissociation, and I'm there for a long time. Until I snap out of it and I'm able to get my bearings on where I'm at, where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do. And I have my son, and then I have my other son, and who's I have a biological son and a not bio son, but they're exactly the same to me. Like you said before, blood couldn't make us any closer. And so, that there's, during that time, I'm also unpacking all the things that like I went through, whether that was, I don't even know. It wasn't me even labeling it as something that was toxic growing up. It was just like, I remember what it was like being that small and having someone so large and terrifying, in my face, strong arming me, hurting me, like my mom was, a firm believer in, spare the rod, spoil the child. And getting them whoopings daily. My older siblings got it far worse than I did, because she was deep into her new path of being a Jehovah's Witness, and that whole community shaped how she handled it. But as I started getting older and, we're working with my kids, like I understand the importance of coming down to their level, like dropping to a knee and like talking to them, and the importance of explaining things to them. Like I walked through a store with one of them and like in the cart, and they're asking me questions, all these things, and I'm just answering like I'm talking to another person. And someone comes around at me and they're like, wow, you talk to your kid like they're like a and I'm like, what, a person? Because they are. They're just tiny people.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna.
Little person.
They are. Like I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh, yeah, how you do it? Yeah, no, we're just gonna be okay. Like, no, that's not how you talk to another grown up. Like, why would you teach your kid to talk that way to another person? But I tried to adopt some of the things that she did, which were like something toxic that I brought with me, that I turned into something not toxic, because it replaces the thing that was the most toxic for me, which was the physical abuse and the manipulation. So my mom has, I feel like every mama and every parent has this the look that they give you. Well, my mom's look was like her eyes went black, and you can see the depths of the abyss in them. Like it was just like, oh God, I'm about to die. A demon has just taken over my mom, and so I adopted that, because I like, yeah, I'll raise my voice, but I don't like to yell. Like I definitely don't want to raise my hands to them, because that's again, as we said before, that doesn't teach them that that's the wrong thing. It takes explaining to them what. But like I had one tiny human, just they didn't want to eat their that particular dinner. They wanted to have something very specific, and so he like looks at me, and then the moment I walk and I turn around and go to walk out, he pushes the bowl onto the floor and was like, there, I won't have to eat it. And I turned around and I was like, what? And I turned, I was like, what happened? Like I was like, what happened? And he's like, it fell on the floor. I was like, how did it fall on the floor? He was, I pushed it. And I went, why? And he goes, because I didn't want it. And then I felt my mom's face, like that look that she would give me. Like I felt the entire presence take over, and just eyes black. And I didn't even say anything. And I just I saw him go from this to like, I'm sorry. And I was just like, I didn't even do anything but look at you. Whoa. But like, and then like, in that moment too, I was kind of also like, well, you thought you was going to get away with not eating. Boy, I'm going to pick up this food. Your punishment's just going to be eating this. Like, you're just going to have some hairs in your food. It's gross. Like, but you're going to learn.
You won't do it again.
You won't do it again. I promise. And I swear to you, he never did. Like, but it was that moment that I had, like, I could have, in that moment, my mom's look meant that I was getting an ass whooping next, and for me,
and how?
Right?
And I would have been hungry.
And I would have been hungry. Exactly. I mean, for me, I was like, I am furious right now that you had the balls to drop that and then tell me you did it. I can't get mad at your honesty, but boy.
Thank you for telling me the truth. Ooh, I want to hurt you so much.
But like, yeah, it took that moment, and like I took that what would have been something horrible for me as an experience, and I tried to shift it, and then I came back later and I was like, do you understand why I was upset? Do you understand why that's not okay? And then we broke it down. Being able to, I guess it takes being mindful. Personally, I feel like it takes being mindful in order to recognize these things, and that was my long-winded answer for that. But yeah,
no, that's awesome, because I mean, you already jumped into the next question, which was, what are some some of the toxic parental traits that has made you a better person, and can they make you a better person? And they have. You obviously was able to take that stern, scary, death-defying look and turn it into a positive, but also realize that you could still discipline without laying hands. You could still teach and convey your message of your displeasure without doing that. And that's very, very awesome. Sorry, go ahead. I know you want to speak. I can feel it.
No, so has it made you a better person? And so I think being responsible, obviously learning that responsibility, being independent, hardworking definitely is one of the traits. Individual, right? Because you learn to be self-reliant. I think that that's important. But I think one of the biggest things, and you don't realize it until you become a parent yourself, is that what are you going to take from your parents that you liked and worked, and the things that didn't? And being aware of that and actually putting into practice. I think that's very critical.
Also being honest about what worked and what didn't. Because
I'm
something,
I'm gonna jump in on that one because I feel like this whole conversation I've done nothing but bash my mom, and I'm gonna sit here and I'm going on the record and say, Mom, you can't sit there and say that you did a bad job with me, because all you've ever heard when I was growing up was how wonderful of a job you did. There were some things I didn't agree with. There were some things that I didn't like, I didn't appreciate. But look at the man that you raised now. And I'm very pleased with the opportunities that you allowed me. I'm very thankful for the opportunities that you allowed me. You allowed me to grow creatively. You allowed me to grow as a man. You allowed me to experience some things that people would only dream of. You did, I don't even know what you did in the behind the scenes to make sure that I was able to do the things that I've always wanted to do. It is because of you that I was able to experience and live out my life and accomplish almost everything I've ever wanted to do by the time I was 18. It's because of you allowing me that grace to grow and making sure that I got those opportunities. So I thank you and I appreciate you and I love you. To my Father who is in heaven, it is not the beatings that we all remember. It's the life lessons that it took us to grow up into that we remember forever. We all know and we have a good understanding, not to the depths of what you had, but we all understand what you went through and what you did do so we could afford the life that we lived. You instilled in us a work ethic that no other could ever shy away from, that only people can be proud of. And the legacies that you left will last forever. There are some very toxic things that happen in both households that a lot of us kids could do without. But those toxic things that happen within those households help to shape us into who we are. Because steel is through fire, diamonds are created under pressure, and resiliency is made through struggle. And that's what you created. You created some very strong, independent, beautiful gems of children through it all. We all have our own stories. We all have our own shortcomings. But at the end of the day, we're not all hooked on drugs. We're not all in and out of prison. And we're all still on this earth being successful as we possibly can because of you. So to my parents, Johnny Lee Gooch Sr. in heaven and Elisa Marie Hall on earth, I thank you and I appreciate you and I love you.
very sweet, very sweet. Beautiful. It's I always feel strange following you after that because after no, not that specifically, but things like that because you're always so heartfelt in the how you put yourself forward in any situation. We whether we're huddled around the rest of the team and you're like, all right, have something to say to everybody. And I was like, damn it, I was gonna say something else. Just feel like I'm gonna piggyback on it. Like, dang it. Oh, I do this too.
Let me go first.
but see, this is why you're Omega. You're the person who's supposed to go last because you're a hard act to follow. But no, I just in that, but like because it makes me resonate. I resonate with that as well because like for my mom, um, I heard a lot as well growing up about like how good of a job she did, how she raised a wonderful man, and it's always felt strange to me, like I do appreciate the things that she did. I mean, my mom made me more afraid of her than afraid of jail. Like I was like, I'm not gonna do that because my mama gonna kill me. Like yes, it's against
100%.
like yeah, I mean I'll go to jail, it's against the law and it's morally wrong, of course, but my mama will murder me.
And hide the body.
And hide the body and like nobody no crime, bro. Like but yeah, so like I appreciate all the things that she gave to me too growing up because there was that duality that I mentioned in the beginning of the show of my mom created this environment of where I was her therapist, but it shaped or created a space where I could then hold space for others. It created a space for me to be able to be open about my thoughts, my feelings. They weren't necessarily shunned or shied away by her, other people, because I just wouldn't stop talking and they were just like, will you please shut up? So I developed negative things towards that, but my mom was definitely somebody who reinforced my passions. She whatever I was passionate in, my mom stood behind me and was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get you everything you're gonna need to know about this. And I'm just like, what? Okay, that's a lot of information, Mom. You wanted to learn how to play the guitar. I'm gonna give you every great guitar player in the world, and you're gonna listen to all of their albums, and you're gonna watch all these VHSs. For you kids at home listening that don't know what a VHS is, that's like Netflix, but on something physical.
This rectangular thing, it was generally black, but some of them were colorful.
Yeah, you would stick them into this.
Inside.
You would stick this into another box that it would then get stuck in, and you would have to freak out in case it was like a naughty movie, and you would take apart the whole entire VCR, only to see that all the wires and tapes were all mangled up, and you're just like, I guess we're just sacrificing this whole system, and I'm leaving the house.
VHS, I want you to look that up.
But yeah, I don't have anything really for my dad, because I didn't have him, but the lack of him created this opportunity for me to find my own way. I feel like the toxicity that they brought each other and their my mom's toxic perseverance of not having him in my life helped me in being able to say, this is not a good situation. I don't need to be in this. As well as, that it's possible for me to find my own way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I if I could say it to my mom, I would thank her, I
say it now.
I'm
Talk to her right now.
Funny, comes after our trigger episode, but
I'm here for you. We're here for you. You're not alone.
Thank you, Mom, for everything you've done. I love you. I take all of the principles and things that you've taught me in my life, and I apply them. But yeah, I appreciate that time you took to teach me not just one way, to allow me to choose my path, to allow me to choose my way in whatever it was, whether that was spiritually, whether that was with education, whether that's career wise. I was fortunate enough to have you, a mom who I would have, I would have expected any other parent, because you hear these stories, to say, like, oh, you shouldn't be an artist. Don't follow that. Like, if you're going to, like, don't do that. Like, yeah, that's a fun little hobby, but make sure you're doing this. This is really where you should be. And if you're not here, then I disown you. Like that wasn't the narrative at all coming from you, and I appreciate that, because all you did was support me and be like, you want to be a dancer, boy, show me levels, like show me your lines, like I want to see you do something different, like show me a new style, like, all right, now adapt. And that I hold with me today, like, in everything I do. I'm like, how many levels can I take this to? How do I change it up? How do I switch up styles real quick? How do I show something different? And I oh, this one's gonna hurt. I see you in my son, and I miss you every day. And it annoys the shit out of me. So thank you.
We love you. And we appreciate you being open and allowing the space to speak. A lot of times we don't take that moment, whether they're here in the physical or in the metaphysical. We don't really take this time to really just thank them or appreciate them, no matter how hard it was or what we were put through as children. Being a parent is a thankless job a lot of times.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you right now, it takes a real person to do what you just did right now, and I'm very proud of you. And as your brother, I'm going to tell you, I'm proud of you, man. I love you. And Mom's did a wonderful job with you. And to all those out there right now that are listening or watching this podcast, I want you to understand, yes, we are grown Black men that are feeling our feelings, but we're being open and we're being honest with you about this. But just understand, take a moment, whether your parents are here or not, take a moment and thank them. Talk to them. Let them know. Let them know where they hurt you, but also let them know where they helped you grow into the person that you are. Talk to your kids. Love on them. Hard.
Annoyingly so.
Right? Times are rough. So love on them hard. And just reflect on the things that you can do to get better. Because just like at your jobs, at your work, there are times when you just want to get better. Or you are leveling up and you feel like nobody's paying attention. But just understand, your gratification is going to come later on. If not now, it's going to come later on. Because your children are going to be the reflection of you and your ability to raise them. Your legacy, exactly. And before we close out or anything, because myself and Z, we both spoke, but I would like to allow this time for my wife to speak. Yes, she was very nervous coming into this, but she did a wonderful job tonight.
Absolutely.
Both of her parents are still here. Matter of fact, we were just at their house before we came and did this. But, babe, I'm actually going to ask you to do the same thing. Just look in the camera.
I'm going to cry.
That's fine. I mean,
by all means, yeah.
I cried internally.
I have a towel.
In Spanish. That's fine. You're talking to your parents, so you want to say it in Spanish? Say it in Spanish. It's good. It'll help our Spanish listeners.
Absolutely.
If we have any.
They speak English, but no, I just want to tell them, that I love them, and I know that we don't always agree, and I'm the black sheep of the family. Um, but I know that they love me, and on record, I am the favorite. Yes, I said it. But I just love them, and I really appreciate what they do, and I'm thankful that I still have them around and I can see them. A lot of people don't have that, and I'm very fortunate for that. But I also wanted to take some time for the parents, people that are going to be parents or that are parents now, that we try our best and we do fall short. And we hope that the positive things outweigh the negative things, and that our children remember those things when they're growing up. And if at some point they do have children of their own, that we're able to influence them to be independent, strong, loving human beings, um, and that they don't judge us too harshly, because we really want the best for them. And um, that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
She was shortchanging us because she was getting, I could hear it in her voice. She's getting choked up a little bit, so she's trying not to. But I want to say one more thing, if you don't mind.
By all means.
To my in-laws, I love you. I appreciate you. I know I wasn't your choice. I know you probably didn't really want me around. You weren't what I wasn't the ideal choice for your daughter and your granddaughter. But I appreciate you trusting them and allowing me to be a part of the family. I love you guys more than you could ever know. And I appreciate you. You guys did a phenomenal job with my wife. You did a wonderful job with my siblings. And Dad, you are such a wonderful example of a man for my daughter. You set the bar so high for me. And that doesn't discourage me, that encourages me to step my game up and not only meet the bar that you set, but also exceed that bar to the best of my ability. I got a long ways to go to exceed it, but I'm doing everything that I can to meet it. You guys have set a great example of what a marriage is for me to see and to work towards, and what ability is. You also showed me that immigrants are way more than what this country shows them to be. Mom and Dad, again, I love you, I appreciate you, and I thank you and I salute you. Thank you for all the hard times that you put your kids through, and all of the great memories that you showed your children and that you embedded into them. Because again, steel is forged through fire, and you have some of the strongest kids I've ever seen. Te amo mucho.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mariela, for joining us. I know how nerve-wracking it can be talking with us knuckleheads, especially on camera, but and recording. But I appreciate your openness and your honesty and your insight and your research. You brought a lot to this conversation, and I really enjoyed having you on here and being able to converse with you, because Omega and I get to have these kinds of conversations. We while we're on tour, we have various levels of conversations, so I get to see you very rarely. So being able to dive deeper and get to know you on a deeper level has been very, very I feel very privileged.
Well, thank you.
That's awesome. And this is the first episode where I'm gonna go to bed and I'm not gonna hear. So what'd you guys talk about? So tell me about it. Like, well, finally you jumped in. But
There you go.
yeah, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm really thankful that you finally decided to join us. I mean, this is really awesome to have you, and I appreciate your openness because I know this wasn't easy for you. So I appreciate it, and hopefully now you have a better idea of what I'm doing.
Oh, you two. I might need to keep both of you on here just because the dynamic is adorable. In that same respect, like if you guys listening at home want to share any of your toxic parent traits that you recognize from growing up, those of you who are parents, if you have any traits that you've recognized, coming out with your own children that, maybe you haven't worked through yet or you're working through currently, feel free to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at Have a Drink Cast and use the hashtag HADcast. But also feel free to join our Discord because we have a lot more people joining. We're getting really into opening and sharing as a community and really holding space for each other in a judgment-free zone and really just dive in to everyone's hearts and minds because we'd love to get to know you guys a little bit more.
Definitely. And that's where I primarily will speak to you. I don't really talk too much on Facebook or on Instagram, but in our Discord, you will have a conversation with me if you so choose to. Not like I'm anybody special, but just thought I'd put that out there. If you have any questions for Omega, hit me up on our Discord, and I will get back to you.
Yeah, the link for that will be in the description. I want to leave us with one of the quotes or one of the studies from the research that you sent us, Mariela, which was from Trials and Tests. I'm just going to take a piece of this because it's important. Healthy parents provide a healthy environment for their children to grow and develop fully into people they were meant to be.
Yeah.
Breathe,
man.
So remember that moving forward. I know. I will continue to. It's something that's important to me. And I hope will be important to the kids later on. All right, it's about that time.
All right, let's hit it.
I implore you all to raise your glasses. I want to thank you all for joining and listening at home and joining us on this episode of the Have a Drink podcast. And we invite you back again to sit, think, and have a drink. That's been us. Peace.
Peace.